So for most of you, you'll be familiar with Ganesha as the elephant-headed deity from the Hindu tradition. What we can start to connect with is what that means at a deeper level for us. So Ganesha is really, he rules the base chakra. Let's start there. So the base chakra connects with the 4 petals, with the 4 elements of grounded embodiment. He has often 4 arms, which links to this number 4 again, as well as the 4 base petals of Muladhara chakra. And this idea of 4 is often synonymous with the material world. So Ganesh is very much about how we can have a grounded, stable sense of self and soul in this material reality. Now, he's also connected with spiritual enlightenment and removing obstacles, very similar to Lakshmi, who we'll also connect with today. And they're often pictured together in Hindu iconography. So the energy between Ganesh and Lakshmi is this sense of the spiritual path and the human path in this dimension are actually connected. They're not at odds with each other. So this is particularly important when we hit these times in our life journey where we may feel like the world's gone nuts, or there are things happening in our lives that we don't quite know how to deal with. Maybe it's just difficult. Maybe we're not feeling particularly spiritual. You know, there can be times when things are going well and it's flowing and we might feel in the zone creatively or in our practice, or we're loved up, or we're just feeling really great. And you can kind of be in love with life and see the divine in everything. In a sunset, you feel like you're, seeing the goodness of the universe. You're seeing God in that sunset, or the goddess in the trees. Like, we have those moments. Now we have these other moments where you may feel extremely ordinary and very human, and kind of like we're stuffing things up, making mistakes. And there can be a great deal of fear, even anxiety or doubt that comes up around those times in the planetary collective. That sense of instability, and in our own lives and our own hearts and minds, at times we can really feel like we're being kind of knocked about by the winds of fate. So when that happens, I like to think of it like this. If you imagine the problems that we face, and everyone faces obstacles. This is part of being in the material world. I don't know who frickin' designed it this way, but someone did. And this is what we deal with when we're in the human form and we're attempting to have that courageous sense of bringing the soul through into fullest expression, to have that spiritual fruition and experience all of the beauty and majesty and mystery of what it is to be alive, and to grow spiritually through that process. But when we do it, we encounter obstacles. So the way to work with that sense of those obstacles with Ganesha is to kind of visualize, if you like, the obstacles are a mountain that you have to climb, and your Ganesha is bigger than your mountain. So what does that mean? It means that we start to focus on reorienting ourselves to the power of the spiritual. Now, one of the key symbols of an elephant is the trunk. The trunk is interesting because it can uproot a tree. It's very powerful. At the same time, it can pick up like a needle or a peanut. So it's very refined. And when you think about most tools or weapons, but let's think about tools for a moment. Think about the chainsaw that cuts down a tree. It's quite a brutal instrument. If you think about the chisel that the sculptor uses towards the end of the sculpting process, when it's just about doing these really refined little changes, that instrument itself is quite fine. You can't use the sculptor's tool to hack down the tree, and you can't use the chainsaw to do the fine part. They're normally 2 separate things. But with Ganesh, there is this unusual combination of the power that we need along with the precision and the skillfulness. So it doesn't matter if something before us that we really feel in our hearts is part of our destiny and we want to go for it. It doesn't matter if it seems like there's a forest of obstacles or just a subtle change that's needed. It's like that divine intelligence knows how to accomplish things. And that's the energy that comes through in the 8 frequency that is this year collectively, but also associated with the goddess Lakshmi and the divine feminine generally, this kind of accomplishing grace. So Ganesh has this, connects with this. One of the other facets of Ganesha, apart from the removal of obstacles and the sense of grounding and connection with the body, and he's often pictured with like the big belly. There's this sense that he really has an aspect of pleasure about him. His symbols include things like the axe, so that cuts through attachment and allows us to become free. He's typically pictured holding a lotus, so that's the symbol of Lakshmi actually, and enlightenment. So that's another connection with her. Sometimes he holds an elephant goad or a noose, or even elephant goad, a noose, or a hook. And those symbols are basically about the ways that the divine energy, so when we speak about Ganesh, we're speaking about a being, but we're also speaking about a kind of consciousness that he manifests and that is part of us and part of all things, part of the universe. So that energy of the goad, hook, and noose is sort of about noose is binding, the hook is lifting or sometimes dragging. If you've ever had this sense that your soul is like, or the divine is like pulling you along a path and your ego is going, I want to go. And your soul's going, yeah, it's like pulling the dog on the lead or the dog pulling you. So that's the hook. And then also the elephant goad is about like being able to control and kind of have some sense of strength over the instincts that might go a bit wild. So it's not harming, it's just learning how to tame these forces that can be quite wild. And this relates a little bit to the vehicle of Ganesh. Like if you ever see the statues of him, there's often a rat or a mouse kind of sitting beneath him. Oh, he also holds the bowl of sweets, which represents sweetness and good karma and prosperity and abundance. And so this little mouse or rat, which is his vehicle, is at his feet. Now, the interesting thing with rodents is their teeth just keep growing forever. So they actually have to keep gnawing away or eating in order to kind of not have their teeth just grow. I think they've done experiments that they can like tilt to like 86 degrees or something, if I remember correctly. Like it can be quite intense. So they need to keep doing that. And it's a kind of a mirror for our own desires and our own needs that are never really satisfied. You know, we can have a laugh about it sometimes. We finish the bite of that meal, or we haven't even started the meal and we're thinking about the next one, or we attain some sense of fulfillment or satisfaction on a material level and we're already thinking, what will the next thing be? Or I want more of this. I liked it. How can I get it again? So this is just this kind of element of human nature that we're learning how to work with. And with Ganesh, choosing to have this as his vehicle, we have to think about that, because it's kind of weird. If you think about, you know, the elephant, this huge creature sitting upon a mouse, and that's his vehicle. There's something, it's fun, it's playful, it's a bit absurd. And I love that. And it also defies convention. It's like, how does that work? And that's the mystery and the genius when we start really trusting this energy within us, this divine energy, and understanding what it's capable of. With Ganesh working with this mouse energy, the story goes that he basically roped the mouse into being like with these sweets, you know, you want this, you're hungry, so I'm going to use you as my vehicle. We're going to accomplish good works together and you can have what you want, but I'm going to work through you. And also the story says that he shrunk himself so that he could ride the mouse and the mouse could handle it. Like, so, you know, the mouse wasn't trying to have to do something that he literally could not do. There's so much beauty in that. It kind of speaks to what the divine consciousness does for us as human beings. On the one hand, it will ask us, it will use the things that we think are flaws, that we struggle with, that we might think that's not very spiritual, and it will work with us. It will use our passion, it will use our desire, it'll use the part of us that is hungry and wants more, and say, okay, let's work with that. How can we channel that into something constructive, so that maybe it becomes you want more knowledge, or you want to apply yourself more on your spiritual path, or you become hungry for enlightenment, like, you know, whatever way. Or if you want something in the physical world, how can your soul, the divine intelligence within, work with that so that you learn something useful from it? And it will do it. It will do it. We don't have to understand it. We can just know. And Ganesha holds this energy of whatever it is that we're maybe chasing or wishing for in our lives can be made to serve the spiritual path through that divine intelligence. And this is important when there's crazy stuff going on in the world and you get frightened or overwhelmed or despairing, or you feel it in your own mind, when it's hard to tame the darkness in our own minds that may have us questioning things or feeling insecure or unstable in a way that we want to feel secure and stable, and we might not always feel that way. And so it's really good to know, reassuring, I feel, to know that there is this divine intelligence. We can access it. It is part of us. It loves unconditionally. It has this wisdom. It has this accomplishing power to deal with the tiny things that we need and the big things that need to change. And it knows how to work with us, even if we feel flawed, even if we feel imperfect and not sure if we can handle it. It will shrink to fit what's needed. So what that means is the divine will adjust to meet us where we're at. That's what that means, which is kind of beautiful. So Ganesh really has this kind of strength and this power, but he's also childlike. He's often, he likes to dance. It's his thing. He's a bit of a party deity in a sense. Has seriousness, but he has that joy and that energy. He loves music. So this is also the part of us that has that childlike quality. Now, childlike doesn't mean immature. Childlike is just original. The parts of self before they had to get conditioned by society or changed or modified because of experiences, that kind of thing. It's also the instincts. So again, this mouse represents the instincts, but also them being utilized in a spiritual way. So this is the energy of Ganesh. When we call on Ganesh, and generally in the Hindu tradition that he arises from, but you can also find him in Buddhism, by the way, but generally when we call on him, it's at the beginning of something. So that's Ganesh, that very sensible, playful, truth-seeking energy. Now, he's often pictured with Lakshmi, and we probably know Lakshmi as, again, some of us may be new to her, but many of us will know her already as the, again, Hindu tradition, goddess of abundance, prosperity, spiritual enlightenment, beauty, and love. Now, Lakshmi is a call for us when we want to connect with Lakshmi energy. What we're actually wanting to lean into is this, again, this stability that Ganesh provides. Now, the interesting thing with Lakshmi is she's known as Chanchal in Sanskrit. It's like always moving. She doesn't have a fixed place, a little bit elusive, capricious, flighty even. You never really know where she's going to land. And if she does land on you, she is not necessarily going to stay there constantly. You've got to kind of find ways to keep connecting with her. And this is one of the reasons why pairing her with Ganesh, this base chakra stability, helps to ground her. And then when her abundance and her gifts do come to you, Ganesh gives you this kind of very pragmatic way of working with that in this dimension, in the human world and in the physical dimension, so that you can continue to have your needs met and work with wisdom. So that's why they're partnered together. What's interesting about Lakshmi is when she arose, when she came into existence, that happened because the forces of good and evil were fighting over this powerful spiritual gem that they wanted. It was going to provide immortality and all sorts of delicious things. And they both wanted it, these forces. So while they're arguing out of it, the tension that came out of that birthed Lakshmi. That's the story. What does that mean for us? It means that when we're in our shadow work, if you want to call it that, when we're dealing with the stuff that we don't like about ourselves or we don't like in the world, and we're trying to really get into it and own it and just say, okay, that person might have that issue, but just, I can't control that. What I can do is work on, what does this bring up in me? How do I feel about this? What is the judgment that I feel? What does this tell me about myself? Like compassion for that person, boundaries around that person. What can I work with in my little field of endeavor that I can control, which is this universe that we are, each one of us? And when we're doing this work, we're starting to really open up the potential for Lakshmi to be born within us. Now, what is Lakshmi? Enlightenment, grace, beauty, truth, and deep values. So when Lakshmi arose, because she's so gorgeous and shiny and beautiful and promises abundance and pleasure and all sorts of wonderful things, all the gods wanted her. So she needed to choose, where am I going to go? Now, when we think about the feminine, like the Lakshmi within us, this is not about biology or gender, actually. This is just about the feminine wisdom in the heart. Which masculine energy, again, not about gender or biology, within us, the energy, the masculine that moves in the world, that decides, how to be as a masculine. Is it protective? Is it responsive? Is it tender? Is it stable? Is it there? Is it absent? Is it, off meditating in the forest, not dealing with what needs to be dealt with? What we get to choose. So Lakshmi, out of all the deities that wanted her, chose Vishnu. Vishnu is present masculinity, very responsive. In the Hindu trinity of divine masculine energy, you have Shiva, who's the destroyer. He clears away, partnered with Kali Ma, or Parvati, but Kali often associated with him as his Shakti. So together they are clearing and they are chaos. If we've had a lot of Kali, and I personally do, like I just have that astrologically, I have it in my soul, we're probably quite familiar with the chaos of clearing. And there'll be times when we'll feel like, wouldn't mind just, between the waves, having a bit of a longer, time on the plateau where things just can kind of ground and stabilize before we go through the cycle again. So Lakshmi and this energy can be a very nice kind of counterbalance to when we've been going through a lot of deep transformation. So we still need to get into that transformation to bring her through, but there is a sense that there is like literally that light at the end of the tunnel situation where we come out of that time into a not just a birthing channel, but we're actually birthed and we're actually stable and we're in that space. And Vishnu, who is just basically Lakshmi's masculine energy, or the flip side of when the feminine is in the heart and chooses to be with this energy that values responsiveness and presence. So it means being responsive and present with ourselves and with other people, and noticing when the relationships around us can bring that to us or not, and then how we want to respond to that. We're starting to model these qualities of Lakshmi and Vishnu. The beautiful thing about Vishnu, he just manifests all these avatars, sends them to humanity to help. He sends Narasimha, the lion-headed deity, when evil is just extreme and very smart and the goodness is like being threatened. He just manifests this avatar that's going to sort that shit out and does it effectively and just gets it done. So there's always this sense of these avatars of Vishnu kind of always feel unofficially like Christ has that energy of an avatar of Vishnu. It's that kind of vibe of just, there's some stuff that needs to be sorted. This is not cool. Sends this energy and this being manifests to help. So Vishnu is the masculine that's present and engaged and involved. And if we, for whatever reason, have had maybe, I don't know, an absent father or authority figures that were either too strict or not really present or connected in an emotionally intimate way, there can be a real healing around the masculine and the feminine when we connect with Lakshmi, because her values are this kind of very loving and protective and very active and engaged masculine presence. And if we are wanting to maybe connect with our own values of the heart and move into the world, maybe could be anything, set up a business, or could be something that's more subtle, but just really want to feel stable on our path, want to feel that we have a way to be present in the world and really share what it is that we have, not just throw more energy into the transformational fire. If that's our path and our purpose, great, do it. But there might be others who want to say, I want a way to hold the space. I want a way to help people and myself and others to find a way to be able to settle and maybe just become more aware and more conscious of what's happening without feeling like they're thrown into the mix. They're like the ones that, if the boat is rocking, they're kind of the ones that are in there just trying to stabilize it a little bit with their energy and their strength, that core strength, to just help it start to settle so everyone can calm the frick down. So, and in our own minds, bringing through this energy if everything feels chaotic, just to come back to some sense of spaciousness.